celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
With every WrestleMania season, you expect to have a number of part-timers come back and work the show. That's pretty obvious, which always takes away from the other stars. You know, the things we always complain about during WrestleMania off-season. But now we're getting a considerable amount more of celebrities and notable famous people on the card to fill slots for both nights of WrestleMania to fill this show and sell it out. I don't blame WWE for doing it. They have no choice. They put themselves in the spot where they were going to have to fill this show out. All these other shows they're going to do after this will be some stadium shows that might have to fill out a certain amount, but they're going to have to figure out how to make that happen. Maybe just by the part-time roster alone they could do that, but they really have pulled out as much as they can to make something happen. So you look at both nights. WrestleMania 38 coming up less than 4 weeks, and so far we know that on night one, Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. So you got Ronda Rousey, who's part-timer, but is back to a full, to a regularly year-long contract or year-long deals anyways, which I guess she's going to be around year-long. Then you got Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Miz and Logan Paul against Dominic Mysterio and Logan Paul. There's your famous person right there. Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville. That's another famous name right there. And then on night two, you already know that we're going to have now the new announcement that Kevin Owens is inviting Stone Cold Steve Austin onto the KO show unless there's something more that happens to it. You got Brock Lesnar, part-timer, who's working against Roman Reigns, title versus title. Pat McAfee now offered his match after having Vince McMahon on his show. Even though he's a SmackDown announcer, he's still a famous person outside of the world of wrestling before anything else. And there you go. And then Edge, more or less a part-timer, AJ Styles. So that's what you're working with. And there are no young names on this lineup whatsoever. The women's tag team titles, Carmella, Queen Zelina, Sasha Banks, Naomi, they've all been on the roster for a long time. Austin Theory is the one name you might be able to go ahead and be making a star. That's about the only one you got. And you try to go ahead and build Bianca Belair back up once again after being humbled from her first title run, losing a SummerSlam, and the redemption of bringing her back to the top of the card once again. So you got those names right there working for you. And that's it. We're not talking Drew McIntyre, Happy Corbin. Those guys were in for a long time too. So we're not building new stars this year. We did that last year, right? Last year, we looked at, let's go ahead and do something more with Bianca Belair and give her that first spot in, making something of herself. We tried to give a nice shine to Damian Priest. We tried to give a nice shine to Omos. Well, where have we gone from there? When you look at last year's show, anything we're kind of building off of from last year, which was, a quieter night, but still we did have both nights happen. When you look at things, I'm looking right now and seeing of the younger stars that we have, or the new and upcoming stars, Omos, Damian Priest, not on this roster, not on this card for WrestleMania, not so far. Then you had Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler. And Shayna Baszler, I think, might have been a good spot for her as the holders of the women's tag team titles. And then Riddle, and Sheamus going at each other for the U.S. title. And Riddle losing the belt at WrestleMania. And Rhea Ripley beating Asuka for the Raw Women's title. So there were names there that were being considered. And you definitely had something where you had a couple names that you were trying to build up. And now, after that, I talked about it. The spotlight's being put on certain people. Where do we go with those spotlights? Okay, well, Rhea Ripley's been lost in the mix. She was given some time, to be near in that title picture, and they pulled back. Didn't feel like she was going to be it. So they gave her an opportunity. When you look at Bianca Belair, they let her have the belt. She ran for a while with it, and then they took it off of her once Becky Lynch came back. I don't think it made a difference, for the fact of the matter is that, she was there for 3 months holding on to it, and she did fine with it. But I thought her getting humbled, getting the chance to get that belt once again, go back to the chase again, making her a much stronger champion this time around. Damian Priest right now with Finn Balor. Maybe they'll have a match at WrestleMania. We don't know what's going to be coming of that. But Damian Priest losing the belt to Finn Balor takes away that part. And now they're going to go with Damian Priest trying to go into a heel route as opposed to a face. So turn him now after the whole deal with Bad Bunny. And there we go with that. And then Omos, who is still in the same spot as before, is as if there was some kind of a build after him and AJ Styles won the Raw Tag Team titles, sure. But Omos really hasn't done much more since. They've kind of just kept him protected, and he's still very much green. So he's still a work in progress. He's the new Braun Strowman, and that's the next big guy they have. Something's going to happen with him. Otherwise, there are no other younger stars they're building off of. They did have Apollo Crews, who beat Big E for the WWE Intercontinental Championship, and nothing's with him. He's just being used as fodder right now, up until WrestleMania. New Day, we don't know what they're doing with them. And Big E, had his chance at the WWE Championship, and he had it for a long time, and they dropped it off right before WrestleMania time into Royal Rumble season. So you see, about 5 or 6 names right now that could be the future of the company. And they're not being positioned right now in WrestleMania. So, whatever progress they might have had, it wasn't enough for them to warrant, that these stars are big enough to go and put on one of these nights in Dallas to help sell out this show. No. Instead, the company had to go ahead and rely on some outside help. Not just the part-timers. There's one thing where you have a couple of celebrities that might be involved in some way, shape, or form. So last year was Bad Bunny and Logan Paul. Well, Logan Paul's back again. But now you're adding Johnny Knoxville. Now you're adding Pat McAfee. That's a lot. That's a lot to add into the mix. And they did 2 nights before it in the same way. Now we're going to do it again. Bigger crowd this time, too. Not the excuse of Tampa where they only had the cap off at 25,000 a night. To get 75,000 or more, which is where they need to be. For them to be ultimately, they can hang their heads high, they got to push past 80,000 for both nights. They got to be able to say they can do that. And I don't know how they're going to do it. But at the moment, I don't know if they've gotten any better with what they've done with tickets. And if it's gone any better for them. I don't know yet. But then again, I haven't looked at what they've been doing so far for their events. When we look at what they're doing right now when it comes to the build-up and interest of WrestleMania season, when you look at the live shows and how people are looking at it, well, WWE is still struggling for the most part. They're just not doing well at all when it comes down to it. The last update I could see for WrestleMania so far for night 1, and that was reported by WrestleTix on March 4th, so this was the last week, they basically put down that they're now currently at 62,000 as the capacity, and 5,000 seats are left available. But of course, they can always open more room. But right now, tickets distributed 56,000. And then for night 2, they're at 55,000. Now, this does not include... it does not include the fact that Kevin Owens and Stone Cold Steve Austin are here. So they might put themselves definitely past the 60,000 mark, maybe up to 70. But this is what they had to go and do to get themselves to a certain spot. There might be something else they can add, but that's what they've already added right now is about as much as they can get. There's not much else they can do. There's nothing else in the bag of tricks for this company to do to pull out their greatest hits. There's no one else they're going to bring back in this amount of time to build up. They have everything they're going to do. And we already know they have other matches that are scheduled to be put into the mix. We'll find out what that's going to be. But they did it. They made their plans. And now at the moment, I'm still looking to see what there is left, if there's any other matches that have not been announced yet or not been added to where I'm looking at the information. We don't know if Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens becomes a match. It could be. You never know. But officially now we have 9 matches signed for next month. And there are still other matches we have left, so we know that we'll have the Raw Tag Team titles. About 10 matches are about ready to go. But when you look at what the matches they have, when it comes to the celebrity help, that means they got to fill a lot of time. Because when you look at, okay, the tag team match with the Mysterios and Miz and Logan Paul, that can't go to more about 10, 15 minutes maybe. When you think about Johnny Knoxville, Sami Zayn, that's like a 5-minute match, even if. I mean, they can't go that long. Pat McAfee, Austin Theory, that could go 10, 15 minutes. But they have to have time for everything else. Like for Roman and Brock, you're going to probably have to go about, 45 minutes, maybe to an hour? When you look at Edge and AJ Styles, they're going to have to go about 40 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so for their match. Drew McIntyre, Happy Corbin, they could go like about 15, 20 minutes for theirs. Charlotte and Ronda needs to go probably about a good 30 minutes. Becky and Bianca need to go about 30 minutes as well. So there's all that to work on. But when you look at the card, they're missing so much. And they have to there's no thought process at all as to what the future holds for them after this. When you look at who is on this card right now, and you look at what we're going to have afterwards, let's say for WrestleMania Backlash, you ask yourself, what is left after this to really consider? Sure, Charlotte and Flair could continue. Becky and Bianca could continue. Drew McIntyre, Happy Corbin could continue. Brock and Roman could continue. But Edge and AJ could also continue as well. So there's things you got there for several shows. But then what about the rest of this? What about the rest of this? I mean, for Raw to go and pull, 1.7, 1.8 million viewers regularly? And for SmackDown to continue to be over 2 million viewers regularly? They're not going to be able to keep that up. I mean, the long-term thought process, it's obvious that when you look at the WrestleMania card from year to year, that the faith they might have had in some of their stars that they were trying to build up on, they just don't have it. And maybe there's more of what they have at NXT and what they might do at Stand and Deliver. I don't know about that, but they're looking at that so far and see if there's something more. But when you look at everything else, and the show that they have coming up now for their other events, AEW and WWE are just two totally different companies. San Antonio next week, they're just about sold out for St. Patrick's Day Slam. But Double or Nothing is sold out. Done. 13,000 plus. And $1 million gate for them. Revolution was sold out. They had tickets distributed, 8,200 seats for Orlando. So they were definitely sold out. Madison Square Garden got up to, and this was on March 5th, they got up to, on the night of, they had 2,000 tickets left, 10,000 were set up, and 8,200 distributed. So they only had about 8,000 people, maybe 9,000 if you count the walk-ins, that came into a Madison Square Garden that could have filled probably like another 20,000 if they really wanted to be stretching it. So they were only able to get about half capacity to MSG. And then we look at, let's see here, SmackDown coming up this Friday. Right now they're at Birmingham, and 7,000 tickets distributed. They still got 1,000 tickets left. And that's not too bad. That's more towards, they could be near sellout. Dynamite and Rampage next week, they're almost sold out. 5,000 plus for Agganis Arena in Boston. House show for Allentown, Pennsylvania for Road to WrestleMania, and that's pretty much sold out. It's about 4,000 plus they got taken care of right there. And that's what we're looking at right now. SmackDown of the Hall of Fame, the first night that WWE is in Dallas doing events. That point right now, they got 9,000 distributed, 11,000 capacity at the moment. So they'll be near a capacity for SmackDown and the 2022 Hall of Fame. But that's also taking up a big old part of the stage. And then in a couple weeks, SmackDown's going to the Barclays in Brooklyn. Current setup and capacity right now is 5,600. But of course, they can open up more seats. But right now, they've only sold 4,000. 4,000. This is an 18,000 seat arena. I mean, you should be able to get about 12,000, 13,000 of this. So they're only getting a third of what they would normally get. And that's what? About 3 weeks after the MSG show. So a little bit oversaturation right there. Meanwhile, Fort Myers, the new market for AEW, they had about 500 tickets left. Almost 3,000 for the arena. They sold it out. And when you look at the difference, the comparisons of both promotions and what they're doing, we're not even talking about the fact that the AEW doesn't even have that. They had a good size show, 8,000 for their show in Orlando, and look at what they did. And even the wrap up, the aftermath of Revolution was newsworthy as hell, all over the place. Tully Blanchard gets fired from FTR. Okay, you get William Regal coming out and introducing being part of Moxley and Danielson now as a tag team. Scorpio Sky wins the TNT title over Sammy Guevara. Chris Jericho turns heel on Eddie Kingston, starts the Jericho Appreciation Society. I guess we could call it Judas altogether anyway. Jeff Hardy makes his Dynamite debut. Swerve Strickland announces his first match on Rampage this Friday. And Paige Van Sant signs with All Elite and attacks Ty Conti in a post-match angle against the TNT Championship. That all happened. Like, there's all a big difference right now with everything going on with AEW and what they're doing. They fall back up on all their storylines. CM Punk, MJF, Wardlow being the face of the Revolution, going to break off. Like, there's so much stuff that was developed right at the start to reset the storylines for Double or Nothing, which is already sold out. It doesn't even matter what they have on the card yet. There's not even a match announced, and Double or Nothing's already ready to go. Vegas is ready to go. And WrestleMania, pick of the show of the year. Now, yes, it's 80,000 seats we're trying to fill on both nights, but they're struggling on it. And for WWE to be a company with so much of a legacy on them, and you look at what Vince McMahon and how he's portrayed himself on the Pat McAfee show, and you ask yourself, how's this guy not have this company on lock right now when it comes to forward thinking of the future? Everything else is on lock, okay? The streaming deals, everything going on with their merch, everything going on with other deals when it comes to NFT and cryptos, whatever. Their social media is on fire. They have the engagement. They have the traction. And they can't get the audience to come do the one thing they normally do. You could say it's pandemic because it's still tough for a global audience to go ahead and make the trip over. You can say that. You can say that. But if you're telling me there's not enough people to get 160,000 plus or get 80,000 for both nights, where some people are going to go ahead and buy for both nights, and you're telling me you can't get people for that show? I mean, I don't know how much the tickets are. The tickets are going to be a lot. But still, you think that we're not going to have that amount of people are going to be in Dallas for WrestleMania weekend? I don't know. I don't know what to think when it comes to all this. But it's sad to go and see that the company is struggling like this for live shows. And this is where the house shows, I mean, they do it because they got to generate the money. They got to get on the road. They got to be out there. And they're pulling the full schedule again, which I wish they didn't do. They didn't need to go this much hardcore into it, but this company feels like they need to make as much money because of what the investments that are being put into them. So they have no choice on that. But this company has a serious problem of trying to build new talent. And it's not for a lack of trying. They are trying. I really believe that. Listen, Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest, Omos, Bianca Belair, you could say Liv Morgan to an extent, Big E. Yeah, I think they were all given chances. But I've talked about this a few weeks ago. There is that constant issue of when you're going to build somebody up and you're going to put a rocket ship on them and you're going to put them to the moon, become really big. you got to hope that some of these stars, they're not going to just get too big for their britches, and they can become a Sasha Banks or a Becky Lynch or, a Ronda Rousey or whatever. Like these other stars, or Brock Lesnar, that there's other things they could be doing as well outside of the company. The loyalty is not completely with Vince, which is what Vince wants. And this is where Nick Khan needs to come into play. I mean, some of the part too is there's been an obvious point of, you think about where Bruce Pritchard and some of the older mindset that's in the company that have Vince's ear close at hand. And they're saying, well, there's a thing where we're doing with certain stars to build them up and be something that they need to be. And they're based on old, tired, cliched kind of things. With Alpha Academy, listen, I look at them and I say to myself, you know what? It is something to be said about how they want to build up, with a shush kind of thing. It's like something how, it's like the Billy Zabkas of the world, right? You want to do the whole back to school, like the old bullies of the 80s movies type of deal. That's what Chad Gable is right now. They're just, refreshing that kind of gimmick for 2020, for the 2020s. When you look at Omos, and I think of, he's kind of like, he's not so much like a Kamala, but he kind of is. It's kind of a throwback to that. Like, the way he just talks is just like it's that kind of Andre Kamala kind of feel to him. That's where I feel like they're with him. With Damian Priest, you're just taking some ideas. We're like, oh, let's go Jekyll and Hyde with him. That's an old story we're familiar with. And I just think about, when they try to go with Ricochet, they try to go this whole superhero thing with him as well. Same thing with Nikki ASH. And when they can't do that kind of stuff, this overall kind of feel with certain stars, then what are they going to do with them? They like playing with their gimmicks. They like having the bigger than life stars. And the stars that Triple H brought in, we're going to have to put blame on the fact that NXT Black and White was run. You might not like this. The professional, my podcast wrestling brethren, you will not like this. But I've been saying this to myself over and over. And I really listened to myself after listening to Busted Open, and I kept talking about all the stars for Ring of Honor. When Dave LaGreca was running through the names that came through, and when Tony Khan announced when he bought Ring of Honor, and you look at those names that came through, do not forget, NXT Black and Gold was built on the shoulders of legends of Ring of Honor. The Ring of Honor stars that you see now running AEW, some of them coming from WWE, or in some cases coming from NXT. There's no doubt about that. Andrade, Malachi Black, Keith Lee, Buddy Matthews. You just look at all these people that have come on over to the top. Tony Nese right now, Shane Swerve Strickland. These names all came in, and they were part of NXT Black and Gold, but some of them also were Ring of Honor stars. And WWE does not have a need, nor do they want to do anything more with those stars. But those particular stars, Triple H might have brought them into the fold. All those stars I might mention of right there, they all got more exposure from being in the indies, but when they got that spotlight, that's all they got from it. Because I don't think they improved their work or their promo skills. They might have gotten some extra splash on their gimmicks. But the truth is, are they much different than what they were? They were always good. Period. Okay, Keith Lee, when he was in Evolve, you want to take Shane Swerve Strickland when he was over in Lucha Underground or in MLW, you want to take that too? Andrade working in Mexico. You don't tell me those guys didn't already have the chops before. They came into WWE because they had the chops. They had the work rate. They had the ability. All they needed was some polish. That's what they got. The NXT Black and White was a finishing school. Okay? It helped out to that. I don't think there was much of a difference with Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish being over there. Adam Cole already had the promo ability and the work rate when he was in Ring of Honor. That guy was just destined to be world champion there. And he was. Right? So, what happened was it was a bigger paycheck and a bigger spotlight on NXT, which then eventually went to USA. So, they won out on all that. But what benefit did it have to the company? And some of my fans out here, all these podcast wrestling brethren of mine, I love you all. But you don't think of that picture. You don't look at the long term and realize they really didn't make much of a difference to the bottom line of the company. You don't like that. You want to just say, oh, well, as long as they're in my company, the company that I support, I'm all behind it. And AEW, no, the hell with them. And some of you actually think that way. And, to each his own. You want to feel like that, but you're missing the point. You're missing the point that those stars, I don't care what you say, they're excelling right now, doing matches in AEW and building that brand to become a solid number 2 company. And that's all AEW needs to be right now. For the next 5-10 years, they just need to be consistently second. Because there's a whole lot of room that WWE, to their fault, they've left open. But WWE is not worrying about trying to fill that void. Not anymore. We already know that. So they got to fill up the rest of that void. But what they have right now, the next in line stars, they're not ready to bring them on board yet. And they need some time. Gable Steveson works his way up. Who knows who else comes up after that? But you got to say to yourself, you got to see if any of these stars are going to pan out and move up. And then after that, who else do you have? Who else do you have? When you look at the roster now of stars that you have at the moment, and you ask yourself, how old are some of these stars you have left? Sami Zayn's he's not a spring chicken. Kevin Owens is not a spring chicken. Of younger stars, there's not. Miz is over 40. Rey Mysterio's well over 40. Drew McIntyre's well over 40. For women, it's not so much of that, but still, you're talking about stars who've been around for a long time, for 10 years. Charlotte Flair's into her 30s. Becky Lynch into her 30s. Sasha Banks now at 30. I mean, there's only a couple of stars that are young. Bianca Belair and Austin Theory. Which, to the credit, Bianca Belair, they're continuing the course of building her up. And they're absolutely right to do that. Because Bianca Belair, not only is she great with what she does in terms of her personality, the way she looks, she's got everything. And I will continue to praise Bianca Belair because she's great. It's nothing about makeup or representation of anything. I could care less. I think representation's important, but I don't want it forced upon. I want everything to come in naturally and the opportunities to be open equally. So when Bianca Belair's in this mix right now, she fits that next in line program. She's a versatile, amazing freak of nature athlete. Strength-wise, she is a freak of nature. She's got strength. She's got unquestionable beauty. She's got grace. She's got an amazing ability. She's all-around superstar. She is a superstar. And she, I believe, will win the damn Raw Women's title over Becky Lynch. I believe that's going to happen. It's what should be booked. I would hate to see it where Bianca loses again after all those multiple times she lost. After, in the storyline with Becky Lynch, I want Becky to, she's got to drop the belt. At this time, let's do it. Because Becky can go into a feud with anybody else she wants. And the truth is, Rhea Ripley, now that she's been removed out of the mix with Nikki ASH, which was only an anchor for her, Rhea Ripley needs to get... I don't think it's so much about... They need to go and just rework her. Let's get the brutality theme out of there. Let's just do something to... I don't know what you do. I don't know if you keep her in all black and leather and the chains and stuff. I don't know if you're just keeping that. But let's modernize the character. We can't go, something out of the 90s or the 80s. I mean, I know it's a thing, but we got to modernize that character. Let's keep the dark, brooding kind of thing to it. That's what they should do with her. She should be dark and brooding. Let's get that back there. And let's really bring something out. But the antiquated feel of is what the character has. It's an outdated character, and it's not right for Rhea because she's fucking great too. She shouldn't be left in the dust here. She should have a match somewhere. And I don't know who that's going to be with, but she's left out of this, and it sucks. And then I said to myself, okay, the age is all in there, and listen, when you got work rate, your work rate match is going to be Edge and AJ Styles. But man, how much can you expect of these guys both? Shit, they're both in their 40s. And don't get me wrong, these guys are going to roll, and they're going to have they're going to probably have one of the matches of the night on whichever night they're on. Like, just let them go. Like, I'm all in. They can have an hour. You can go 60-minute draw for them, and I'd be happy with that. I really would. I wish they would do that in this company, but they won't. Because they need to fill time. They should do that. And they got to build some other stars. I mean, Riddle is also part of this mix. Don't get me wrong. But Riddle's also not a spring chicken either. And so you got to ask yourself, well, then who do you have left? Riddle's 36. I mean, it's the time for him to be like at his peak right now in his prime. That's fine. But everybody else is much older. Zelina, she's now in her 30s. Carmella's in her 30s. Naomi's in her 30s. Don't get me wrong. Hey, they all look amazing. They all work really well. But when it comes to women, at what point do you say to yourself, when Carmella and Corey Graves, or Zelina and Malachi Black, or Sasha Banks and her mate, or Naomi and Jey Uso, or Rhea Ripley and I forget who she's with, and Liv Morgan, and whoever she's with, isn't she with Bray Wyatt? I forget who she's with. What if they want to be moms? What if they decide to go and say, you know what? We're not going to be like Becky Lynch. We're going to go enjoy motherhood, but we're not coming back. They might not come back. They're not going to be the workhorses like a Becky Lynch or Ronda Rousey do, where they're at such a high. They've been built to such a high spot that for them to come back. I mean, I'm surprised Ronda did come back, but she wants to be back in it, and the money was there. And so, what do you do with some of the stars where there's only so much time before they decide to go and also decide to drop out and say, you know what, I'm gonna retire. I'm going to become a mom. I'm going to start the next chapter of my life. They could very well do that. But nobody's thinking about that. Vince thinks we're going to have these stars stay well into their 40s and continue to work, like a Natalya. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know. There's not a lot of women that are like that, or even a Tamina that's been around forever. But you can't expect the women that are going to stay around forever to see. Even with Charlotte, you don't know if she's going to want to go ahead and have kids down the line. All that being considered, we don't know where any of this is going to go. So the women, there's going to be a particular point where you're going to say, okay, they're not going to be here, 5-10 years down the line. They might not. And so you need to have some other women stars ready to go to take those spots. And for the men, we're not necessarily hurting. I mean, Rey Mysterio's only got so much left. I mean, that guy's got so many surgeries. Same thing with Edge. AJ Styles might have signed for another couple of years, but I mean, at what pace can he continue to stay? I mean, the stamina he's got to have to keep going like he is. It's pretty amazing. Drew McIntyre, they finally get into a spot now. Bobby Lashley, same spot, but they're both in their 40s. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to keep these guys well into their 50s, and they're going to be like the future of the company? You got to have some new stars to come up. And they don't have anything right now. Randy Orton well into his 40s too. Who do you have now that's ready to go and step on up? So you're going to have to hope that some of these stars are coming up from NXT that are putting a lot of faith into, Grayson Wallers or Braun Breakers. I mean, for instance, Braun Breaker. He drops the belt to Dolph Ziggler. He didn't lose himself. He didn't get pinned. It was Ciampa that got pinned. But nevertheless, Braun Breaker loses that belt only to have to go and win it back at Stand and Deliver. So Braun doesn't even get to go in as champ for the matinee at WrestleMania. He has to win it there. And they figure, well, Braun winning it over some schmuck over Ciampa, who's part of the NXT Black and Gold. I don't call him a chump. I'm just saying the perception at Titan Tower might be that, because it's one of Triple H's guys. It's part of the Black and Gold, a Ring of Honor guy, if you will, who apparently doesn't really want to necessarily be on the main roster. But at some point, you're going to have no choice, Tommaso. If you can make it up there, you might as well. I mean, either you're going to get called up to the main roster, or you're going to have to go to another company after your contract's up. They still want you there, obviously. You're still very important to the company, but at some point, there's no choice to just be. There's no choice to be stuck comfortable down in NXT anymore because they're not going to allow that. Because anybody that's going to be in NXT 2.0, they're expecting to move them up. So after this, if there are some stars within an NXT 2.0 roster that could move their way up, you know, the supposed interest that we always used to have in what could be after this, right? I mean, you look at some of the names that we have. LA Knight is totally ready to be up. Io Shirai could be moved up right away. Dakota Kai can be moved up right away, right? And there are others they have that we just got to wait. Pete Dunne could very well be put up there as well. I could consider him too. But then you have others that are waiting for Duke Hudson or Andre Chase or Elektra Lopez. Now they got Nikita Lyons, the Lash Legend, and Cora Jade and all this. Maybe Raquel Gonzalez could work her way up. But are those going to be stars that can really stand out? Like, to me, I absolutely think LA Knight or Io Shirai will make a big impact moving up. I totally think both of those two can absolutely make a big difference on that main roster. Those are two that just have something else, an it factor. Step them up. They don't need to be stuck down in NXT right now. The Rainbow brand, they are well above the Rainbow brand right now. So move LA Knight up and move Io Shirai. But then what else do you have after that? You got to have some other names. I mean, anybody returning? Bayley? Lacey Evans? Bobby Lashley will be back by then? Okay. And you just say to yourself, well, who else is left after that? I mean, I'm looking at what they got. There are other stars they have that are working on things and they're trying to get up to the next spot. But, you know, we have to wait. Von Wagner, we don't know where's he going to be with him, if he's going to be ready down the line soon enough. Braun Breaker, you could definitely push up right now, pretty soon. Like, once he wins that NXT title back from Dolph Ziggler, which is what I think should happen, it should be, you can move him up too. I mean, that's a quick run. He already got featured on Raw this week, getting a pinfall in the tag match with Ciampa over the Dirty Dogs. So you got that to work off of, and, you know, that's a couple of names. But, I mean, they're still going to need time to build themselves up to a certain level too. And what will the company do to put a rocket on their back and really make something of it? Because when you think about with NXT, what they did, the Triple H era, the Black and Gold era, amongst the stars that everybody loved and cherished of the Ring of Honor stars that were there, or those that were coming from Evolve or other places, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, wherever they might have been, Impact Wrestling, MLW, wherever they might have been, remember, at the same time, there were certain stars being brought up that you thought were going to make it somewhere in NXT, and they were given shots on the main roster and failed. Lars Sullivan's one, Velveteen Dream crashed and burned himself, but did anybody really think he was going to make much of a difference? If he would have kept his shit together, kept his shit in his pants, not mess around with younger girls, if all that could have been gone, does anybody really think in their right mind that Velveteen Dream would be like in a WrestleMania spot right now? Anybody in their right mind? Raise your hands. I really want to know if you really felt like that might be a possibility. Cassius Ohno, you know, they gave him 2 shots in there, but you know, that's on him. I guess it was a personal, internal thing that went on. Percy Watson, nothing. And after that, Tino Sabatelli, never heard from him again. Richie Steamboat, never heard from him again. Mason Ryan, Minnie Batista, never heard from him again. And he was part of Nexus. AOP, never anything else on them. And it's amazing. And then you look at some other stars they have too that, you know, you look at the background on them when it comes to tag teams with like Viking Raiders. Imagine if they were anywhere else. And they've not been given the chance to move up anymore. They're just fodder right now for Usos, right? And that's it. Or New Day, and that's about it. Bull Dempsey, not that guy won anyone else either. So they always had certain stars who were going to move up and try to do something with, and that's all there was. And then nothing. So you have crashing and burning of stars that were brought up. Of the ones that were going to matter to the main roster, because it's pretty obvious that there were certain stars that Triple H brought on board to help bolster and create the Ring of Honor brand. Okay? I don't blame him. When you look at the success that Ring of Honor was going through for a good 3-4 years, what about 2014, 2015 up to 2018 was the heyday of Ring of Honor. And the deal they had in New Japan and the relationship that they had and the stars that were coming into that space because of changes that were going on. I mean, damn. There was a lot right there. Of all these stars that started getting picked off. It wasn't wrong for WWE to do that. Of what they did, they'd have a number of stars they were able to get from the free agents that were out there. When it comes to AJ Styles, and Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, and Seth Rollins, absolutely. So you can't blame for that part. They definitely were right on what they did with some of those names they brought in. And there have been still some stars that have been serviceable, and they've definitely been in the mid-card, and they've made their spots for a long time. You got your Sheamuses, you got your Naomi's, you got your Natalias, you got your Taminas, you got all these other ones that the mainstays on this roster that whatever you got to use them for, they're going to be used for. And that's it. But like, of stars that could be really big stars that could take the places of the ones you have right now, you don't have that future in place. And even the ones that I even mentioned just before that you can see after WrestleMania, along with some of the stars that come back, it's not enough. We know it's not enough. To keep the level of interest that you have right now, which is even then, it's, borderline at best. The level of star power that you need to keep this machine going, especially when you have to go and make sure to build up for Money in the Bank, to make sure to build up for SummerSlam, if they're going to do that show in England, if that's going to pull out, happen after all, another show in Saudi Arabia, another big show for Survivor Series. Like, you got to consider, what are they going to do with after that? I mean, they need to consider all these different scenarios, and it's like, what are you going to do, man? They got big stadiums left to run if they want to make it happen. Remember this, okay? So after this, they got to go to Chicago for Hell in a Cell, but that's going to be just a regular arena show. Vegas for Money in the Bank. Nashville for SummerSlam, which is a stadium show. And Survivor Series is going to be in Boston. That'll just be a arena show as well. But they still got to build enough to make those shows big. They got to be able to do that. And they got that Saudi Arabia show. And if they do an England show, they still have some big shows left to run. They got to have some star power. They just can't expect Ronda and Brock to be just like carrying the load for all of this. There has to be something else. And the stars that you need to be at a certain level to keep people watching every week. Because we need stars that are going to be consistently on there. Because we know once WrestleMania season's done, Roman, he's not going to wrestle much. On a pay-per-view, that's about it. Brock, we don't even know if we'll see him, depending on who wins this undisputed, title versus title deal. We don't know what that's going to be. Edge might take time off again after a little while. You don't know. We don't know. But there's no plan in place. And there's not much on this card after it's done and after Backlash. There's nothing here that really builds up to anything else. And when I look back at those pay-per-views coming up, and I say to myself, okay, well, those pay-per-views, some of them are the gimmick ones, but okay, Money in the Bank comes up. You'll have Backlash in May, Hell in a Cell in June. You'll have a couple of stories that will continue to go on after Backlash. So like some of the WrestleMania matches that are already initially starting off, like an AJ Styles or an Edge. Or, you never know. They might end up being Hell in a Cell, right? Maybe an AJ Styles and Edge after all this is said and done. Their feud might end at Hell in a Cell. Maybe Drew McIntyre, Happy Corbin ends at Hell in a Cell. I don't know. One of the women's matches could also be with Hell in a Cell. But they had that set down the line to a certain point, which is probably why they scheduled it where they did. And then you say to yourself, okay, after that, what else? Then you got to lead up to SummerSlam. And you got a 4-week build up to that. Money in the Bank and SummerSlam within 4 weeks of each other. Both stadium shows. And so what are you going to do for that to build that up? I mean, you got to fill out Nissan Stadium, the home of the Titans, Tennessee Titans. It's another big-ass stadium. There's nothing there, but that's going to be the next roadblock. They can't pull the same shit off right now. And remember, look what they did with Elimination Chamber to try to build that up. We're going to pull Goldberg back up. He's injured again. What do you have left in the tank to build up for those next shows down the line? Like, it doesn't matter so much Survivor Series. You know, they can always do Raw versus SmackDown, all that bullshit. But after this, you still got to be able to get to SummerSlam season and have some stories that you're going to have to stretch out. You're going to have no choice but to stretch out stories 6 months or plus, because you're going to have nothing else to build off of. You're going to have no new feuds that'll be built up big enough to go for Money in the Bank or SummerSlam. Now, the good thing for Money in the Bank is, of course, some new stars are going to get the chance to get that briefcase. Who knows what those might be? Who knows if it might be somebody that gets brought up right away from NXT to the main roster, or people coming back. We don't know. But there's a couple of spots right there in Money in the Bank. And then SummerSlam, who's going to get pushed to that spot? But they don't have a plan for that yet. I'm going to think ahead. I'm going to say to myself, all right, this is fine. They're at least doing something with what they have in terms of the current roster and the current, situation. They're able to go ahead and they're going to be able to pull off, maybe not selling out both nights in Dallas, but they'll get a respectable amount that should appease, them, their shareholders, their broadcast partners, all of that. Because right now there's not much else they can do to really build up what they have, unless they confirm that Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to be wrestling after 19 years. His first match since he lost to The Rock, the last WrestleMania he was in. If it becomes a match, and they call it a match, what might help as well is not just the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin responded back to Kevin Owens from his appearance at the end of Raw on Monday night right after. It's what they're going to have to do in the ring together. So the build-up for WrestleMania is going to get built up pretty good, because now Stone Cold's going to have to come back. They're going to have to build him up, and Kevin Owens is going to have to come out. You're going to hear the crashing glass, and then boom, and then everybody's going to be all Stone Cold fever once again. It'll be back to 1999 all over again. But that only is going to last for another month. And he's not going to be around after this. And if Kevin Owens is going to take the loss, which is what's going to happen, then what do you do next? Seth Rollins at the moment does not have a match on the card, and we don't know what they're going to do with him at this moment, but that's not right. He's not on the card for something. They have to have a plan in place. And also the fact of the stop and starts, where if you won a Seth Rollins not too long ago at day one, he was scheduled to go and win the damn belt, the WWE Championship, until Brock Lesnar came in. And the fact that that kind of stuff always happens, right? Same thing with Bianca Belair. Could have held on to the belt for a while, if not for returning somebody else. So there's all this thought about, could Big E could have held on to the belt longer? Could Bianca have held on to the belt longer? Could somebody else have taken the belt off of Becky Lynch? All those kind of questions could have been answered if they did not have to go and rely on the part-timers. And when they get to the part-timers, what else are they going to do? It's a bad situation. No long-term booking whatsoever, or plan out. At least you might not get the storylines right, but you got to get the stars right. Because once some of those part-timers are gone, when you don't have the spectacle of all those celebrities coming in, Pat McAfee will be back in his announcer's chair. Not much different. You won't have Johnny Knoxville around. You won't have Logan Paul around. All that spectacle and pomp and circumstance, that's all going to be gone too. What do you do after that? No plan. No plan whatsoever. These are the issues that have to be considered. And that's why I've been sitting on this for 50 minutes talking about it. We're going to leave it right there. There's a lot more to WrestleMania coming up. We already know that the matches we already have on the card so far. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Title versus title. Winner take all. To be undisputed champion. Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory. Edge versus AJ Styles. Women's tag team titles. Carmella and Queen Zelina versus Sasha Banks and Naomi. Sami Zayn versus Knoxville. And then I forget what else there is. Edge versus AJ Styles, excuse me. Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin. The Mysterios versus Miz and Logan Paul. Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. And if I said Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, well, I'm saying it right now. So that's what we got. They got the card done. And if Stone Cold and Kevin Owens can really build up a lot of heat, then they're going to probably be able to do really well to sell out that damn stadium. Okay. That works. If you build a story out about Stone Cold, the fact that he worked in the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, now gets to work at Arlington, one of the biggest stadiums for one of the last biggest nights of his career. That's a great story to tell. Way to just hang up the boots the right way. They could tell that story. The last match, one more time in the ring for Stone Cold. One more pair of beers to win, to hurl up in victory. A couple more double finger salutes. All that shit. Sure. You could do all that one more time. That's great. But the momentum, once this WrestleMania pay-per-view is done, I mean, I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if Double or Nothing comes back around, and then the momentum and the hype and everything that's going on, the excitement in wrestling goes back to AEW after this. They got a good bump off of what they did for Revolution this weekend. If you didn't hear the post show, make sure to go and check that out. I did it right here, WrestlingIsReal.com, where everything is on there. You know, all my past episodes, links to all the social media, wrestling headlines, so much more. WrestlingIsReal.com. I never promote that site enough, but it's there. Take a look at it. Always new information to check every single day. So like I said, there was a number of things that happened tonight. With Chris Jericho turning and creating a new stable, with 2.0, Daniel Garcia and Jake Hager, I like it. So obviously the kind of the friction between 2.0 and Daniel Garcia, putting them together, and then the full change of the stable is really good. So Santana or Ortiz, yeah, they don't need that. They've been built up to such a point right now. They're standalone tag team stars as we speak. Sammy Guevara, same thing. The guy is just gold right now. He's the pillar that is a very strong pillar right now in AEW. He's been TNT champion. Matter of time before they decide to go and throw him into the world title ranks and start putting him up there as a contender. Like, he'll start ranking up there, I'm sure, at some point. And then you look at, Hardy Boys now working in an already saturated tag team division. It's amazing. Like the matches you can have right now with Hardy Boys against STR or Top Flight or, Private Party. Oh, yeah, and Andrade and Private Party, the whole turn on the Hardys, on Matt Hardy, changing everything up. I like that change. Now Andrade has this complete stable again, and so they made that full change up right there. So it was a transition to get to the point. And I don't know if that was where they were going to eventually get to, but we're here now, and now the Hardys are back together, and the Hardy family office, which is the right thing where Andrade gets to become a stable of his own. I like that. House of Black was not featured tonight, but we know that's a fantastic faction right now. I love it. They're great. And then you look at Danielson and Moxley, now another tag team being formed. You get new names coming in. William Regal coming into the fray now, managing. Great stuff. So there's a lot that's going on right now that feels great with what is being done for AEW. Again, all cylinders are hitting it right now. It's amazing what they're doing. I got a couple of stories I want to bring up real quick before we go and wrap things up. So one of the things that came up that was somewhat significant is more details about Ring of Honor and the purchase. We talked about that all last week on the program, last Wednesday. So now SC Scoops has shared some backstage details of the deal. Expected to close the first week of April, if not sooner than that. The deal, they say the feeling was it went in reverse and backward because it came together quickly, and now details need to be figured out, which is like I thought. This is going to have to close. So I don't know what Supercard of Honor is going to be, what they're going to do with it. Honor Club streaming service in limbo. Ring of Honor has a call with AEW to review the technical setup behind Honor Club and determine if the assets can be included in the deal. Message to ROH staff is that management is fighting for them, exploring to help everyone, but there's no formal transition plan. No guarantee anybody will stay on. Tony Khan, if you happen to hear this show, if anybody in the AEW hears this show, there's one person I absolutely want you to sign. Please sign Bobby Cruz from Ring of Honor. Take on Bobby Cruz. If not, Bobby Cruz, find yourself somewhere else. Go talk to Court Byron MLW. Go talk to Impact Wrestling. Well, not Impact Wrestling. They got Dave Pencer. It's fine. But get yourself somewhere. Go to MLW if you can. Talk to Court. If NWO will take you, go talk to Billy if you could do it. I don't know. Let's just see what happens. Now, Ring of Honor's already behind on the show's preparations for the Supercard of Honor in Garland, Texas, and Ring of Honor still needs to finalize the card, booking, travel arrangements, and logistics. One top employee told staff earlier this week the show is still happening despite the sale. And Khan's team, it was said, wants to produce the pay-per-view and use their own production resources they feel comfortable with, as they've run the building before. They want to handle the booking of the show, but are said to be respectful of what's already in place, describing it as the AEW team wants things to go smoothly but done their way. Hey, if Keith Mitchell and the team want to run that show, have at it. Great. And at the moment, do we have any matches? We only have 2 matches on the card, right? As far as I know, we only have 2 matches that are answered. For Supercard, 15, by the way. At this moment, we have 4 matches that have been announced so far. Or actually, there's 6. So Jonathan Gresham, who's a lineal Ring of Honor World Champion, the original World Champion Bandito, they'll take care in a winner-take-all match for an undisputed Ring of Honor World Champion. So I imagine that match would have to happen. Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles, Briscoe Brothers versus FTR, that's got to happen. Deonna Purrazzo versus Willow Nightingale for the Ring of Honor Women's World title. Those 3 matches should absolutely happen. With Swerve the Realist and Alex Zayn, or Joe Henry and Ninja Mac, no, I think those matches might not happen. I think those 3 world title matches should stay on the card. Those are damn good matches. Damn good matches. So keep that in place, Tony. I would love to see that. AEW requested a list of talent booked for the show. That's Joe Henry, Bandito, Jonathan Gresham, and the Briscoes. Briscoes are not locked in yet, they said. Because Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, the Briscoes, will be working the main event of Impact Wrestling's Multiverse of Matches event across town later in that evening. Well, that's not outside the normal scope to see the Briscoes working 2 shows. We could do that. Ring of Honor's created a new logo, come up with plans with new local total rebranding to go into place as a new chapter of the promotion, including new digital assets in addition to ring skirts and turnbuckle pads. AEW wants to use the current logo of the pay-per-view to represent the end of the era before rebranding the promotion. And Ring of Honor already has TV produced through April 16th, scheduled to air through that date, even if Khan's deal closes before then. We still don't know if Sinclair is providing broadcast access for their programming at all, or if that just gets canceled. So that's all got to get ironed out. That is still in play. But it sounds like Supercard of Honor is going to be okay. They still got more than enough time to do that. If it becomes more of an AEW show where they add some AEW talent on the card and get the Ring of Honor talent in there, get those 3 matches, those title matches, get them in the play, let's go with that. Work some, side deals to make sure certain talent can stay on board for a limited time until everything gets ironed out, where there's actual contracts in place for Ring of Honor talent, or if it's AEW talent working Ring of Honor. However Ring of Honor is going to be used, we have to worry about that. So now there's that part. Miro's contract has been extended, and among that, there were other stars that have also been extended in the same time. Miro's now signed through 2026. Other names that have also been signed up: Young Bucks were re-signed, Frankie Kazarian's re-signed, and Tony Schiavone. They all have re-signed extensions to stay with the promotion. And there's still going to be some of the original talent that was signed that will either depart or get extended when the time comes. So they're working that out. We're kind of just following along with things. Couple of names for the Hall of Fame class being announced. One that was official is, and I'm going to do my Gary Michael Capetta voice right here from 1990. And ladies and gentlemen, from the Rocky Mountains, weighing 399 pounds. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me change that. Hold on. And ladies and gentlemen, accompanied to the ring by Harley Race from the Rocky Mountains, weighing 399 pounds. Big Fan Vader. Vader goes into the Hall of Fame class of 2022. Another name rumored to be going in, and also Leon White. He is, if I'm right, he will be going in posthumously. He died June 18, 2018. 63 years old, dealing with heart problems for years, and Hall is having a month-long stay in a hospital for pneumonia. The other name that is expected to be jumping in is Sid. You call him Sid Justice. You can call him Psycho Sid, whatever you want to call him. Sid is the other name being rumored to be added to the Hall of Fame 2022. Wow, that's pretty good. I don't think they're going to need much more than that, but who knows? They're going to probably do a full class like they normally do. So there we go. And that's going to do it for the show. Another hour knocked out, in the books. Thanks for listening in. We'll keep an eye on what's going on right now with SmackDown and what's going to go on this weekend. And keep an eye on things. Because there's a lot to work off of now, and it's fun. So at this point, we are heading straight up and forward. WrestleMania season, we are 4 weeks away. Let's see what they do with that in NXT 2.0. Until then, come back next week for the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.